I am live, apparently. Hello, welcome. This is the first of my brand new monthly pop culture chat live streams. I don't think we've got anybody watching yet, but who knows? Maybe nobody will watch at all. I don't know. I'm just seeing on my phone if this is working. I'm very new to all this live streaming stuff. Lewis is in the chat, so hi Lewis. How you doing? Must mean it's working, I guess. I hope you can hear me all okay. What I'm doing with these live streams is I'm going to pick a topic every month. Something pop culture that can encompass probably multiple franchises, multiple things that I enjoy, and then talk about it and, chat for about an hour and see if anybody wants to come and watch them. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, I don't know. Today, in the first one, we're going to be talking about a topic, multi-platform events. Transmedia storytelling is another term for it, or for part of it, or we'll get on to that, about the meaning of these words and things. Apparently I sound good, so that's all right. The sound is coming through all good. I can take this out of my ear now because I was kind of listening to myself on my phone just to make sure it was working. So transmedia storytelling is what I'm going to be talking about today. We've recently had in the world of Doctor Who, the big multi-platform event, Time Lord Victorious, which is an example of this transmedia storytelling. Basically, it boils down to telling a story over multiple narratives, multiple medium, sorry. So you have, like, with Time Lord Victorious, there are so many. There was books, there was comics, there was an animated series on YouTube, there was booklets that come with figurines, there were audio dramas, there were lots of stuff like this. It's not its own thing though. I mean, it's not just Doctor Who that's done this, and we'll talk about some of the others that I know of. But if anybody else knows of any, I would love to hear about them. If you're not watching this live, if you're watching it afterwards, I'll probably leave it up. So pop them in the comments below if you're watching afterwards, if you know of any. But Star Wars is one that has done it before and is in fact doing it again right now. Back in the 90s, they did an event called Shadows of the Empire. This is the N64 game which tied into it. And so this had computer... I mean, Time Lord Victorious does kind of have computer games, but it's more... the VR game element of it was more an added extra to the already existing VR game. It was collectibles in an existing game. This was its own game for Star Wars Shadow of the Empire. There were also books, there were comics, there were all sorts of things. Jay says hello, hi Phil, and Elliot says hello, hi guys, hope you're all okay. So we'll talk about that as well, and some other things. The MCU is kind of another example of this multi-platform storytelling that I'm going to talk about today. I don't know how long we can go on this subject. TARDIS Elliot Trailers says loved Shadows of the Empire. We will be talking about Shadows of the Empire a bit later on, so stay tuned for that, and I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts on it. I didn't experience much of it myself, so I will be relying, therefore, TARDIS Elliot, on your knowledge. Bring it to the chat. Tell us what you liked about it and things. But let's start by talking about what is transmedia storytelling, because that is probably a phrase that you think, well, what does that mean? The prefix in this instance, media, is pretty obvious. Media is the stuff we consume. In this instance, trans... in this instance means to go between, so to go between different types of media. So the story goes between different types of media. And this was a term devised, or from what I can tell, conceived of in the early 2000s by an academic called Henry Jenkins. He wrote a book called Convergence Culture, which is this one here, you can see on the screen. Convergence Culture, where old and new media collide. I used this for my dissertation, and I'll be getting onto my dissertation in a minute. We can actually have a look. I dug up my old university dissertation in which I both used Doctor Who as well as some other franchises as case studies and talked about transmedia storytelling. So this is where the description and the term originally comes from, is this guy Henry Jenkins, who's an academic. He came out with this term, and I couldn't find the exact. I don't have this book anymore, although interestingly I have decided to reorder it because because I was so interested in when I was researching for this. I was like, I really want to read this book again, so I've rebought it. But Henry Jenkins does have a blog, and he does talk about transmedia storytelling on that as well. So I dug up one of the sort of bits of what it means, text of what it means from his blog as well. And it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a bit of a long one. But basically, this is what he says. He says, transmedia storytelling represents a process where integral elements of a fiction get dispersed systematically across multiple delivery channels for the purpose of creating a unified and coordinated entertainment experience. This is really academic language here, isn't it? You can tell. Ideally, each medium makes its own unique contribution to the unfolding of the story. So, for example, and this is one example that he goes back to quite a lot in his book, the Matrix franchise. Key bits of information for the story are conveyed in 3 live-action films, a series of animated shorts, 2 collections of comic book stories, and several games. There is no one single source or text, I'm not sure what text is, where one can turn to gain all the information needed to comprehend the Matrix universe. So it's, as I said, it's having a story over multiple different mediums, where key bits of information are across different mediums. And as you can tell, Time Lord Victorious, which we've had recently, definitely fits into this. Just gonna have a look at the chat. Do the TARDIS episodes from series 2 count? Yes, they do. And in fact, I think I referenced the TARDISodes in my dissertation, which we can look at in a minute. Jay says, I don't think Star Trek has ever done anything like this, have they? I was going to ask that because I don't think they have either. And it was I had it on my list of things, possible talking topics. What would be a good way of Star Trek doing it? Because no, I don't think they have done it, unless anybody knows differently. They've certainly done crossover events within individual mediums. So you've had books like the Destiny series where there will be a next generation edition of the tying into the Destiny story, and a Deep Space Nine tying into it, and things like that. And they've done that in book form a lot. They've probably done it in comics, but they've always stayed within the one medium. They haven't branched out. Whereas things like Star Wars have, with Shadows of the Empire, and now with the latest one, which is the High Republic, they have. So yeah, what would be a good way for Star Trek to do it? What do you guys think? Because I was wondering that, and I was going to pose that question a bit later on. Let the Right One In is a good one. Let the Right One In. I don't know that. Let me Google it quickly because I need to find out what that is. Let the Right. I think, is that a vampire thing? I vaguely remember there being a film. Yeah, there's a film, isn't there? So, what's the transmedia element of that? Where else? So you got the film. What else was there that tied into the story? Let me know in the chat, because I can't see anything obviously instantly by Googling it. So there we go. Yeah, that's kind of what we're going to talk about over the next hour. And if we run out of stuff to talk about that, we can talk about whatever else you want to talk about as well. What have we got in the check? I think maybe Star Trek has, because I downloaded this game on my Xbox. There was like half of it, and then it said, read this book to find out more. Oh, okay. So Star Trek might have done it. I did not know about that. And that's the rest of the story. That would indeed be an example of transmedia storytelling. Do you remember what it was called? Because I would be interested to see what that was. Doctor Who Holmes says, if they do another Time Lord Victorious style thing, it'd be great to tell them a bit more of a bigger story compared to Time Lord Victorious, which kind of only had 2 novels to tell the main story. I mean, I think Time Lord Victorious was quite big. Yeah, there was, I suppose, I get what you mean, the sort of spine of it, the thing that everything branched into and off of, was just 2 books. But there was so much that linked into that. I think the story was quite big. I mean, what would you like to see? That was going to be another topic for later as well. What do we want to see for a sequel for Time Lord Victorious? So maybe have a think about that as well. Right. I was also going to look at my dissertation because my dissertation at university, which was a while ago now, was covered transmedia storytelling. And I used Doctor Who as an example. I used Lost as an example as well, the TV show Lost. I'll find a bit about that in it because that's quite interesting, what Lost did. And some other examples as well. And I think I found a very... not the final version of my dissertation. I can't find the file for that anywhere, but I found a latter draft of it. So I'm gonna kind of bring that up on the screen, and you have to you have to treat it with a slight. I'm amazed I got a 2-1 for this dissertation because, frankly, reading it back, it's a bit of a mess. It's riddled with grammatical and spelling errors, which I really hope were cleared up by the end. But let's see if I can bring it up on the screen. I think that does it. If I'm going to glance over at my own, I don't know what the lag is on this. It might be a little bit of time. Right. So we've got my dissertation here. I don't know. I can't even remember what the title was. It was something like fandom, because it's not on this file. Fandom and the what was it? Fandom and its effect on spin-off media or something like that. And the basic premise of it was like, how does the production, how does fandom and the influence fandom have influence spinning off the spin-off media that comes from our favorite series and things like that. So I'm just scrolling really fast to find the top of this. Is there anything interesting there? So as you can see, I defined fandom. Online fan chapter on online fan communities, continuing adventures spinning off into a world of convergence. I think that's the chapter that we're probably going to focus on here, because I think that's the bit where I start talking about transmedia storytelling. So we need, in fact, you know what? Let's just find transmedia in there and see what it says. I'm obviously not just going to read you my entire dissertation, but I will read some bits of it just to see. I gave it a brief look over yesterday, but I haven't read like the whole thing, so I'm kind of skimming it a bit with you. So what does this say? So spin-off products are not a new phenomenon. I can't even speak now. If we take the broader definition of spin-off to mean anything continuing the brand or franchise, be that merchandise such as toys, character branded goods, it's certainly been around as long as television. Black and white TV programs spawned the kind of lunchboxes with characters on mugs, blah, 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 blah. Okay, this isn't that interesting. Here I got something completely wrong. I gave an example as The Hobbit spinning off from Lord of the Rings, but actually, it's the other way around, isn't it? Lord of the Rings came first, didn't it? Rookie error there. There was an interesting thing about the difference between... Oh, here we go. Somebody was asking about... Oh, that says webisodes. Somebody was asking about the TARDISodes. I know I mentioned the TARDISodes in here somewhere. So today, fans can find stories of their favourite characters and universes continued in a variety of media. These include novels set between the TV episodes and other TV shows occupying the same universe, and specially made minute episodes for viewing on the internet. You can see what I mean about my spelling and grammar here. Okay, here we go. So there's a bit about the definition there's a difference between transmedia storytelling and what a different academic terms as overflow. So this variety of spin-off can come in two forms. One is separate stories that are not needed to make sense of the core text, and the other is a situation where one story is spread over several types of media. Henry Jenkins, that I just mentioned before, calls this latter form transmedia storytelling as part of his wider model of convergence of media culture. Will Brooker also deals with media convergence and has coined the term overflow. The two terms have similar definitions. However, unlike Jenkins' term, which means multiple parts in a complete story, Brooker's overflow is wider ranging, incorporating spin-offs which might necessarily have an effect on the core story. So that's the kind of difference there in I suppose between things like having books which are spin-off books. Like I've got hundreds of Doctor Who novels, but they're not transmedia storytelling. They are spin-off. They are what Brooker would call overflow, whereas Time Lord Victorious is very much transmedia storytelling because it is one particular source, one particular story told over a variety of different mediums. I find it really interesting. Transmedia is just a great way of telling stories, and I think later on in the dissertation I start talking about how that's kind of the future of media, because that's what fans want. Fans want more in-depth stuff, and they sort of the fans drive this desire for more and more intricate storytelling like that. Just going back to the chat quickly. Tyler Elliott's trailer says, Transmedia strikes me as an excellent way to celebrate the 60th anniversary. Have comics book audios all tell parts of a story that lead into the ultimate multi-Doctor TV special. Yes, I would love that. The problem which the BBC has, and which I think I talk about in my dissertation actually, is that due to the way the BBC is funded, due to the license fee and some of the restrictions it has on it, you can't make anything, they can't make anything that you have to pay for, in addition to the license fee, vital to understanding the content on the free-to-air channels. So you could potentially do something like that, but there would be a bit of difficulty in managing. You'd have to be very careful about how you did it, and you would have to make it so that those elements of the of that story that weren't on the free-to-air TV were not at all vital for to understand the plot of the main one. So they could tie in, but you wouldn't have to have seen them. So somebody could easily watch the 60th anniversary special, multi-Doctor special, and not feel that they have missed part of the story, or not be able to not understand part of the story because they haven't got those other elements. That's the trickier situation that the BBC finds itself in, as opposed to some American things like Lost, which were able to do much more intricate things. Again, Lost still did it in a way that meant that you could watch the TV series and you wouldn't have to follow all this intricate stuff that they did. But they were more freer to do something like that, where there was stuff that you wouldn't necessarily understand if you didn't follow those bits. You had to go somewhere else for. What else is in the chat? Yeah, it would be really good for the 60th. I completely agree with everyone in the chat. That would be an absolutely amazing thing, and I would love to see it. I fear that they would find it too difficult to negotiate, like how they would pull that off in that way. But you know, here's hoping. TARDIS Helix trailers. I dread to read back my dissertation. Yeah, it hasn't been a it hasn't been a great experience. I've just been reading it going, oh god, I phrased that terribly, and oh god, that's spelled terribly, and yeah, they have managed it fairly well on Time Lord Victorious. Indeed, they have. TARDIS Helix trailer says, fair point. I suppose they've managed it fairly well, because it doesn't tie into the part of the story. Isn't the main TV series, so they're free to do as much as they want outside of that. That could be that you have to have every element to understand it all. They are free to do that. I think they've done the right thing in making it quite separate, because each story, each element, like the Big Finish element, the comics element, the Doctor Who magazine element, you can enjoy as individual stories. That's worked for them on just a purely sort of money level and a commercial level, because there will be people that like Big Finish. There'll be people that like the other ones that just don't you know don't aren't interested in the comics. So it makes sense for them to keep it separate, even when they don't have to. Your thumbnail's not in focus, is it not? Oh no. Oh well, never mind. Not much I can do about it now. Is that me holding the cup? That was kind of that was from an old video thumbnail that I did use ages ago. I just needed the image that looked like I was doing something that might be a live stream. I will try and retake it with something more appropriate, like a microphone or something like that. I don't even have my Disney cup on me, because it was the Disney announcements that they did last year. Right, where was I? Shall I? Is there anything else in my dissertation that was interesting? I want to find the Lost stuff, because that was quite interesting what they did with this. Let me see if I can find the Lost stuff, because they did a lot of stuff. The TV show Lost, which came out while I was at university, and they did a lot of really intricate stuff where they would just leave stuff in the real world, and like people would find it and then post it online, and then people would work together online to solve the clues, which then gave them a bit of the story. It's really quite interesting. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'll come back to Lost, because I found another bit which is about oh no, I've just lost it again. That's annoying. I pressed a button and it switched back to a bit I didn't want to be on. There was a bit about the Doctor Who. Here we go. Doctor Who's limited entry into transmedia storytelling can be seen on the internet in the development of what Will Brooker calls sim sites. As he explains, rather than being about Doctor Who as a television programme, the websites treated its mythos as fact and allowed an exploration of, for instance, the corporation that created the Cybermen, the stately home Torchwood House, or the school that was overrun by Krillitine aliens. This was around about Series 2. This is when I was writing this dissertation, which tells you how long ago I left university. They did these companion websites for almost every episode, and they basically recreated the website of something that would have been in the episode. So you got Cybus Industries had a whole website which the team at the BBC had created as if it was a real organisation. You had a website for Torchwood House. You had a website for that school, as I say, that was overrun by the Krillitine in School Reunion. All of those things had their own separate websites, and that was a limited form of transmedia storytelling. But it was one that the BBC could do, because they were free to access still. You didn't have to pay to access them. There wasn't any sort of paywall. Also, there was that was quite limited in scope. You could enjoy the episode without these, but these things just added a nice little bit of flavour to the episodes if you happened to want to go and explore them. Then you've got these sim sites backed up a particular episode, as I said. They were made to look completely authentic. And then, again, during the second season, here we go. Who mentioned TARDISodes earlier? Because this is where I mentioned TARDISodes. During the second season of the new series of the BBC, also released a TARDISode, a play on the words TARDIS, the Doctor's ship, and webisode, a term used to describe an episode made especially for distribution on the internet. A week before each television episode was due out, these were prequels to the episodes and essentially an extended trailer to whet the appetite of the audience. The one that tied into the episode Tooth and Claw, about a werewolf terrorising Queen Victoria in a Scottish house, showed the meteor that originally brought the werewolf creature to Earth crashing centuries before the actual episode was set. The fans that had have actively sought out the TARDISode before watching the TV episode would therefore have the advanced knowledge that the werewolf was an alien, that those who had not seen it would not. So, as you can see, I've gone into Inception mode there. Wait a minute, let me switch back to me. So yeah, that's another example of the TARDISodes where you do get a little bit more of the story, which is quite interesting. My video is lagging. I'm new to this streaming lark. I'm going to have to work on some things, obviously. I'm using Streamlabs OBS, and I'm kind of just getting used to it. I've set up, like, some scenes, and I think I set up some little GIF animations that happen if somebody does anything. By any chance, if anybody's watching and not subscribed to the channel, if you hit subscribe, something should happen. Also, if anybody wants to give me a super chat, that's something should happen then as well. But I haven't been able to test either of those things yet. No, I can't on my phone because I'm already subscribed to myself on that other account. So that won't work either. I can't believe the TARDISodes haven't been officially released. I know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, Jace. Why were they not on the DVDs? It's just silly. I don't know why. OBS is way better than Streamlabs. Well, I don't know. I'm new to this. I actually downloaded both, and Streamlabs just seemed more user-friendly for sort of a beginner like me that knows nothing about streaming. It just seemed that I could do a lot more click and draggy. Basically, I needed something simple that I could get my head around really quickly. So yeah, maybe I'll give the other OBS a try as well. But for the moment, this will have to do. I've set up everything on this one. Now look, I've set up my bubble background and everything. What else? Where were we? So yeah, anything else in the chat? Has anybody that's done a dissertation, has anybody else done a dissertation and used Doctor Who or another sci-fi property they enjoy as a case study in their dissertation? And if so, what was the topic? I'd like to know that as well. My voice is going to start going soon. Still haven't found the lost stuff. You know what? Let's go back to the. Did it again? Didn't it? Did it again? Did it again? Keep pressing. I got my short keys sorted to. No, that's conclusion. I've gone past it now. Where is it? I'm just gonna have to listen to myself on my phone for a second as well. It doesn't seem to be lagging on my phone. That's interesting. I think I found the stuff on Lost. Yes, here's the stuff on Lost. Okay, so we were talking about sim sites for Doctor Who. Well, there was... Oh, that's interesting. James Goss, who is the producer now of... where did I get that from? Oh, he was cited in another paper. So James Goss, the producer of the BBC website's cult tie-in at the time, and now is the producer of Time Lord Victorious, claimed the Doctor Who Transmedia experience that it was the most ambitious online fictional world ever, according to him. And this was talking in 2007 about Series 2. However, shortly after this, the American primetime cult series Lost launched its own transmedia storytelling world that greatly surpassed that of Doctor Who's. Described by producers as a hybrid between content and marketing, it created a mystery to be solved by viewers which spread itself over the internet, books, real-life events, and even chocolate bars. Oh yes, even chocolate bars. So it started with a sim site that was created for the Hanso Foundation, the mysterious creators of the Dharma Initiative in the show. Has anybody watched Lost? Am I just losing you all now because nobody knows what Lost is? Because it's now like 15 years old show. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's like this mystery show where these people crash on a desert island, and some weird shit goes down, and they're trying to work out what's going on, and it gets progressively more weird and more sci-fi as it goes on. Because initially, it does seem like it's just a character drama about these people that have crashed on the island. But as we find out more and more about it over the seasons, it starts to get more and more sci-fi. Anyway, so the mysterious creators of the Dharma Initiative, whose logos have been scattered around the island on lost TV episodes. The address for the website was given out in a TV advert for the fictional Hanso Foundation that aired in the commercial break of the episode of Lost in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And then the advert also contained a phone number, which if you rang, played a recorded message that also gave clues to unlocking hidden areas within the company's website. The Lost team had experimented with sim sites in the past. In the first series, they'd created the Oceanic Airlines website, which was the plane company that crashed. And then they basically launched this thing called the Lost Experience. So in May 2006, it would go much further than anyone initially expected, including releasing a novel which was published by Hyperion Books called Bad Twin, cited the author as Gary Trope. In fact, the real author of the book was Lawrence Shames. Gary Trope was a fictional character who had supposedly died on the plane. So they're now releasing fiction within the fiction, but in the real world. And this kind of in-depth storytelling, it blows my mind. And I'm gutted that I only found out about it when I was researching my dissertation, because I would have loved to have been like there on the ground experiencing this and buying the book and stuff. But I never quite caught it in time. The book itself gave away more clues and information about the Hanso Foundation, some of which we would later go to find out about in the TV show, but by this point wasn't known in the TV show. And then the Hanso Foundation took out several newspaper adverts, which condemned the book for its false accusations of them. So you've now got this fictional company from this TV show taking out adverts to criticize a novel that has been published in the real world by a fictional author because it criticizes this fictional company, all from the TV show. It's just at like the levels this delved to. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I really wish I had encountered this at the time. Lewis says he's seen it but never heard of it but never seen it. It's a great series. Some people, it's got a bit of a reputation for the ending, and a lot of people were disappointed with the ending. Personally, I quite like the ending. Controversial view. There you go. So there is more stuff on Lost in there as well, and the Lost experience went as far as having they would have random symbols that were clues to things in shop windows in capital cities around the world, mainly the US, in New York, London, and Sydney, I think it was. They had symbols in shop windows, and it would just be the symbol there. There would be no explanation of why the symbol was there if you were there in person. But if you knew what you were looking for, you could go and find them. Now, obviously, and if you got all of them, that would help you decipher something. Now, obviously, one person is unlikely, unless they're very rich, to fly around the world getting all these symbols. But because of the internet, there was this kind of collaborative, cooperative coming together of fans who would go to message boards and things like that. This was before Twitter, to share this information. And that's just like fantastic. So you could still participate in this, even if you couldn't make it to those real world locations. And in fact, it was so vast and big that you couldn't do it without the fan communities. So the collective intelligence, as it was referred to, I think. I did mention the chocolate bar. I should mention it as well. There was a limited release of a chocolate bar that had been established on screen. I don't know what was in the chocolate bar. I don't know if there was anything else, but the fact that they just released this chocolate bar, that was a fictional chocolate bar from a TV show as well. Loads of sim sites. They had chat shows, real chat shows, interview people that treated the Hanso Foundation as real as well. It's just like the levels this goes to. And a lot of this did reveal stuff that would later on be revealed in the show. So you wouldn't necessarily be missing out on it, but you would get the information, like what the numbers were. There was these mysterious numbers that kept on coming up in this world of Lost on the island, and nobody knew what they were. They were repeated on a radio message on the show. And this whole Lost experience first revealed what those numbers were before the TV show ever did. Brilliant. So that's probably enough about my dissertation for now. What were the conclusions? Shall I just have a quickly look at the conclusions? Let's have a look at the conclusions, see what I said. Because I'm not sure if I particularly talked about Transmedia in the conclusions, because that was just one chapter. I predicted, apparently, that the introduction, that strong link between fandom and the creation of spin-offs would be found, as fandom would represent an existing audience for any spin-off product produced, blah, 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 blah. I interviewed people from Outpost Gallifrey. I haven't been on Outpost Gallifrey in over a decade. It got all a bit too intense on there, much like Twitter does these days. Fandom is neither the powerless elite that Turlo, another academic. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned anything about that specifically in the thing. Anyway, that's my really weird dissertation. I've been thinking about digging that out for a while and doing maybe a little thing on it. I was going to maybe turn it into a video. Right, have I lost everybody talking about my dissertation? Because I think the viewers went massively down when I was doing that. Anyway, that's my dissertation. And as you can see, so there we go. That's Transmedia storytelling. And we've had Time Lord Victorious. Let's talk about Time Lord Victorious again, because I think that's probably the thing most people will be interested in. What did people think of it? Did people enjoy it? What was your favourite bit of Time Lord Victorious? Mine was probably... what was mine? Probably the Big Finish stuff. I was talking more about this on Mr. TARDIS's stream last week. Big Finish, I'm a massive 8th Doctor fan anyway, so the 8th Doctor stuff with Big Finish was probably always going to be my favourite of the stuff, so quite glad. I try to think what I'll do for my dissertation, says Doctor Who Home, or how long is it till you get to when you need to do a dissertation? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to give away your age, but is it coming? Are you in a university degree at the moment? And if so, what subject are you studying, or what are you thinking of studying? Let me know. It took me ages to pick mine. In fact, I think I picked something completely differently initially and started working on it, and then at the last, fairly a good few months into working on it, went this isn't working out, I've got to change it. But there you go. Time Lord Victorious was great fun. I really enjoyed the Big Finish and the novels. Still need to listen to Minds of Magnox. Yeah, the Big Finish stuff for me was the best bits. The bits I thought were the weakest was probably the Titan comics. It was really weird. The first issue, nothing much happened. And then the second, it just kind of rushed to an end, and it just felt a bit paced really badly. It felt like there wasn't enough story there to really hold my interest anyway, and it felt a bit tacked on. But it was still okay, I guess. The art was nice, but that was probably the weakest bit of it. But the strongest bit, 8th Doctor stuff, definitely. I wonder if Jay says, I wonder if Doctor will attempt Transmedia again. I think they probably will at some point. I think this has been a success for them. I've spoken to several people from different areas connected to the event. Some of the partners, some people within the BBC, and from the general gist I've got, it's been a success for most people. I said on Mr. TARDIS's stream that I didn't know whether or not we'll be able to see if it was a success, who it was a success for, because obviously each individual partner will have their own gauge of success. So Titan Comics will have their gauge of success, Forbidden Planet will have theirs, etc. So if they do another event and one of the partners that was involved in this one isn't involved next time, that will probably mean that element of it didn't do very well. But I think overall, I think the BBC are very happy with it. I think, I think it'll be good. Somebody mentioned earlier on about what would the sequel one be. Tying into the 60th, I think is a fantastic idea. Brilliant. What would you want the focus of it to be, though? Because the focus of this one was very much David Tennant, with I would say the 8th Doctor as a secondary, and then the 9th as a kind of third. The 9th wasn't in it that much, the 9th Doctor. Oh, my voice is starting to go. I'm not used to talking for an hour. But what would you want a new one to include? Who would you want the focus to be on? Would you want it to be on the 10th Doctor again? I think from a commercial point of view, that's I think they feel that the 10th Doctor sells well, and therefore that's why they probably picked him. But should he be the same for something else? Jace says the Eagle Moss figures were the highlight for them. Well, Jace, good for you. I like the Eagle Moss figures, actually. The Daleks I got, they were really good. I'm not a figure collector myself, so then they were never going to be the most exciting element for me. I do like them, though. They are good. But I'm not a massive figure collector, so I've got a couple. I've got a few here and there just to decorate my shelves in the background of where I usually film videos. But I'm not a massive figure collector. So I enjoyed them, and I liked the booklets and the information that came with them. But I didn't, for instance, get the last set. I didn't get the Time Lord Victorious and Brian the Ood set, because I found out in advance that, well, I found out after they'd been released, but before I had seen the pre-order had gone up, that they didn't have any of the story element in it. There wasn't anything in the booklet that would tie into the story, and therefore I thought, well, that's kind of what I'm in it for. I'm in it for the story. So I didn't get that one. But they did look good. Doctor Who Holmes says it'd be cool if it was a bit of a Marvel-style crossover with spin-offs getting involved in the storyline. Like have one Doctor and then a few spin-offs that revolve around them. Yeah, that would be good too. Yeah, definitely. Right, so I was also going to talk about some other things that had done this. So Star Wars, we briefly touched on earlier. We have the Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, which did it back in 1996, did a similar thing. They had comics, they had books, they had this game, in fact, on the N64, which is the only bit of this event which I personally experienced, because I had an N64 and did play this game. But at the time, I don't know if I just didn't realise that it was part of a bigger story, or I just didn't care. I can't remember. But I didn't read any of the books. I didn't read the comics. I wasn't massively into comics then. I became much more into comics later on. And yeah, so I don't know a massive amount about this, other than the fact that it incorporated various different mediums. Just going back to Doctor Who on one more comment, Lewis says, I would like there to be 15 books, 15 months before the 60th, one book being released each month, and they all lead into the 60th, including all Doctors, including War and Roof Doctor. Yeah, that's one way to go. Personally, I don't read that quickly. It's not that I don't read that quickly, it's that I don't find the time to read books very often. So I might occasionally, couple of nights a week I might find some time to read a chapter or two of a book. But I don't get through books quick enough for there to be 15 books in 15 months and me to keep up with them. So I don't think I personally would like them to do that, because I just know that I wouldn't be able to keep up with it. I would much prefer it to be a mixture of books and audio dramas, and because audio dramas I can listen to while I'm doing other stuff. Audio dramas I can listen to while I'm washing up or working or whatever. I can't read a book while I'm doing those things. So I love books. I just don't have the time to read enough of them for that to be a good idea for me. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely like it to be more than books as well. If we're going to do a transmedia thing leading into the 60th, which I think is a great idea, I think it needs to encompass everything like Time Lord Victorious did. You need to have the audios, you need to have the comics, everything leading up to it. For the 50th, everyone did their own little mini event. So you had an event in the Titan comics. You had, was it still the other company back then? I can't remember. But you had whoever had the comics license at that time. You had an event in that. You had an event in Doctor Who magazine. You had an event over. BBC Audio released those Destiny of the Doctor books. Big Finish did their own 50th anniversary stuff with the classic Doctors and all of that.